Right, I wish ye demo parliament, and parliament is some see what ye and yansem ketwa because I hire all media gunners and it come from us or subscribe be like it. Now do comment no we feel free now the ato no more reviews of notification bell no so say be ya dan post video on the first person on sa ebeka na ye honra parliament Honorable Kwadu Oppong Nkrumah MP4 of Fuase Ayrebi one Honorable Murtala and also a MP4 Temele Central enye easy sanko fu emienu enye give and take pa na Murtala echre Honorable Nkrumah say oni tumi audacity be no wo say wo de beka akire wo mo say na they don't know how to govern na time on wo so no mesa o makose country we ne mesa ketwa even fertilizers ye say yemfa ma akuafo no mo mfa nwo mafu ase na koko adwuma no ntumi nkoso na economy no ntumi ngro na fertilizer ya twere ho say not for sale no they sold it to them omo ton ma omo na wasanso ka say the Ghana economy I mean the cedi no is doing well because of the gold board and obisa ne say na MPP was no na gold ni o man mu ana a question obisa no na MPP ewo power no na gold ni o man mu ana ensam na de abusua edoso ye go hwe bimra
needed to pay $20,000. Isn't that worrying? Isn't that shocking? And to be very honest, Honorable Mr. Speaker, the courage of our friends across the aisle is just tremendous. No one would even expect that they would have the audacity to even make a statement. Yet, with the mess that is created, with the mess that everybody agrees in this country that they created for the people of this country, they have the audacity to even tell us that we don't know how to govern. I wish you could borrow me a scintilla of your audacity, a scintilla of your courage, because it takes a courageous person to be able to talk about the governance of this country, considering what you guys have created. It takes someone with a level of courage to be able to debate on the issue of how we have managed the cedi against the dollar. It takes someone with the courage to be able to tell us that even fertilizer, which was meant for farmers and which was written on it not for sale, you sold those fertilizers to the farmers of this country. You sold them to the farmers of this country. Now, if you are telling us it's because of the gold board, it's because of the gold board that the economy is doing well, didn't you have gold under your administration? Didn't you have goals? As a matter of fact, at a time when you had leading members of your party who were telling you that there were some ministers who were not doing well and those ministers should be booted out, you all cowed to submission. Today, you are talking about that. And to say, Mr. Speaker, the least said about patriotism, the better. And now my brother is telling us that, you see, we are patriots. And that is why we are supporting. That is why we have never been against any of such intervention. As a matter of fact, you have staged more work out in this parliament than your total number in parliament. You have staged more work out in this parliament than the total number of your representation. Patriotic citizens do not walk out. Conclude. They argue with reason. Patriotic citizens do not just hold press conferences. In fact, I am told that your other name is press conferences. So, Mr. Speaker, it is very clear that the NDC, the NDC under President Mahama and the Minister for Finance and his able deputy have showed our friends.
Time is up. I'll give the floor to Gideon Boaku.
I was on see ya. Honorable Oppong Nkrumah antwema no osi jai so wakasa ozo twen na de be ewo watutu bia manene pa na ne this one there is more than a debate,
and they will hit you in development. My brother the deputy minister or my brother the minister is asking me such as, I will show you. You see, one of the public goods and services is security. One of the public goods and services, Honorable Murtala, is security. You asked me, I'm responding to you. One of the public goods and services is security. To be able to provide security, you have to release money so that the intelligence agencies can gather intelligence and act on it. When you fail to meet the fiscal program, you can't even pay the allowances for intelligence officers. So, and I regret to say this, but because you asked, that's what I'm telling you. So when people plan that they are going to Nalerigu Senior High School to commit murder, your intelligence agencies can't pick it up because you are not spending. When you are not releasing the funds for intelligence work to be done, when people are plotting insecurity, your intelligence system can't pick it up. You asked me about examples of the public goods and services that will suffer. Let me give you some more examples. Take your flagship programs. You said you are going to do a national apprenticeship program. So far, because of the fiscal failure, you have only been able to release 7% of the budget. Because of the fiscal failure, your 1 million coders program, you have released 0% of the budget. Because of the fiscal failure, the Agric for Economic Transformation agenda, you've released 0% of the budget. The Women's Development Bank, you've released 0% of the budget. The Big Push, you've released 0% of the budget, and you are still listing old road projects that have been commissioned. So I'm drawing your attention to the fact that because you misconceived the fiscal program, it is showing where you have to release money. And you cannot keep going on failing to release money. Because if you do not release the money, public goods and services and development will struggle. People are looking for hospitals in their constituencies. Because of fiscal failure, you haven't been able to add one cement block to Agenda 111. Why? Because you are not raising and spending. How often can you tell people who are not getting the public goods and services that you promised that what you have done is that you brought the primary balance to 1.1? It's like a father who says that I am piling up all my salary in the bank account, but I won't pay my children's school fees, I won't pay their medical bills. When they ask me, I say the bank account is looking nice. That is what is going on. And that is why we are drawing your attention to the fact, though we've commended you in some areas, that you can't continue like this. Mr. Speaker, there are some recommendations we want to make. These are recommendations about some things that must be sustained. So, for example, let me speak about the currency. Now, the IMF has exposed you that part of what you are doing on the currency front is that you are dumping about $1.5 billion from the reserves that we left you onto the market to suppress the currency. And they have advised you that you should desist from that. The question is, how do you sustain an appreciation of the currency? We've already come to an understanding of why the currency has appreciated and what you are even doing as part of it. But how do you sustain it? Mr. Speaker, I have told you that we are patriotic. We will give record. We are not like those who would prevent you from laying papers on the floor or laying bills or fighting on the floor for political advantage. We will.
Food inflation was even the most disastrous challenge facing the people of this country. Fuel prices was. And I think that if we want to have an analysis and do what they promised the people of this country and what we inherited, it is very clear, like Fili, Ga Fili, Ga Dochi. It is very clear that the people of this country indeed were in excruciating, unacceptable economic circumstances, occasioned by not just incompetence, but gross, crass, and unacceptable incompetence. They subjected the people of this country. So when it comes to what we are achieving today, the ordinary man walking on the street, the people in my constituency in Tamale Central, and my honorable friend constituency, are not interested in those jargons. They are not interested in the most excellent grammar that we speak. They are interested in their livelihood. They are interested in the circumstances. Now, in this country, when we were introducing, what's the name? The Youth Employment Program, NAPCO, we warned you. We told you that it was not sustainable. It is very clear to everybody that the reason why we had a huge unemployment rate in this country, particularly youth unemployment, was because that particular policy intervention was nothing but a policy intervention that was emotionally driven. The NYEP started under President Kufuor and the NPP. Then you had President Nanado. The least he could do was to continue with the NYEP and try to find solutions to some of the teething challenges. He never did that. He felt that he needed to have something that is completely different. So it was egoistic, and that is the reason why unemployment, which we inherited at 8.6% under your, we inherited under your watch around 17%. By the time, indeed, you left office, unemployment was what? NDC left it at 8.6%. you left youth unemployment at a level over 13%. Total at 14. Unemployment was huge. And he said that inflation was around 54% because of international challenges. What were they? They were Ukraine, Russia. And in fact, perhaps the death of the Queen was also one of the contributory factors, for which reason this country went through what we went through. So I just want to tell the people who are watching us that they have seen the difference. Even with the successes we have chalked, the NDC hasn't gone to town parading and telling people what we have done. We allow our work to speak by itself. We allow the interventions we have made to demonstrate, and the people of this country feel it in their pockets. If it was you people, you would have gone to town wanting everybody to hear. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by just a proverb. And that proverb, in fact, I want to conclude with this proverb. Oh, I have a lot of time, Mr. Speaker. Okay. Mr. Speaker, there is a popular proverb. And that proverb is very simple. And I expect my brother Habib to know. And apologies to those who may be taking their meals. That when you sleep with an itching anus, you wake up with smelling fingers. The reason why they are finding it extremely difficult to defend their record is because of what they have occasioned. And he, my good friend, Honorable Oppong Nkrumah, was an active participant in the mess that was created, a mess which we are still trying to clean. And in fact, what we are doing now, we have not even applied the second year. It is just the first year. And the first year is intended to clean the mess that was created. By the time we finish and we get to the second year and the third year, the people of this country will say, our good friends in MPP, bye-bye you. But let me also state, Mr. Speaker, in terms of governance, if you read the 2017 financial statement, and I urge my brother and others to go and read that financial statement, every single paragraph in that statement, they talked about corruption and how they were going to fight corruption. By the time we had the mid-year budget for 2017, they started removing the word corruption from the financial statement. By the time we had the 2020 budget statement, the word corruption was mentioned only once. Because instead of fighting corruption, they were fighting anybody who was fighting corruption. And that is the reason. Everything we do in this country, what is significant is our ability to fight corruption. And for the purposes of those who do not know, at any point in time, there is a change in this government, either through the...
Give you feedback and advice where necessary. So, Mr. Speaker, for example, on the currency front, what the government, we are advising in all humility, your brothers and sisters on this side, we mentioned to you that to sustain the currency gains, pay more attention to the proper retirement of forex earnings, not an artificial dumping. Because today, if you dump currency artificially on the market and you suppress the rates, Governor Siama will have the rate, but Abochi will have the dollar. Today, a lot of importers are complaining that even when they file paperwork at the banks for transfer of forex, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they are not getting it. So if you go ahead with this artificial dumping and suppression, what will happen is that Governor Siama, as I told you, will have the rate, but Abochi will have the dollar. Mr. Speaker, on the revenue measures, our recommendation is that some of the revenue measures you have introduced are in the long run going to take inflation back up. We said it when you introduced the Doomsor levy at midnight, when you waited for everybody to go to bed and you brought the Doomsor levy. We told you that extra levies on petroleum eventually will translate into inflation. For us, you say because we don't have goodwill, we should keep quiet. If you like, don't listen to us. Your own Governor Siama is drawing your attention to the fact that it is a risk for increased inflation in the medium term. And so our advice is that some of these panic revenue measures, you originally misconceived the fiscal program. You are now panicking and you've introduced 8 new taxes. Some of them, like the Doomsor levy, like the special import levy that you have introduced, they are going to translate into inflation at some point in time. It will be good for you to pull them back now at this point in time and rather look at what you can do on the expenditure side to cut And talking of expenditure cuts, if there is a place where the 24-hour economy is needed the most now, is the Public Investment Division at the Finance Ministry. Why? Because that is where public-private partnerships are conceptualized. That is where they need to be working around the clock so that you can crowd in private funding to support what you cannot fund from the Treasury. And so your brothers and sisters on this side will give you feedback that pay attention to these things. I'm going to end with a caution. Mr. Speaker, the cost of government services is going to go up because fees and charges are being put up by about 30 to 40%. Electricity is going up by about 16%. The list that the Minister for Finance brought, now people on social media are drawing his attention to the fact that that is not the price of Yaz sanitary pad. What he came to list here, people are drawing his attention to it. The minister came here and claimed that there was no gold for oil program. The Bank of Ghana itself concedes that there was a gold for, in fact, if there was no gold for oil program, why did you make the announcement that you have cancelled the gold for oil program? That propaganda, stop it. For example, your road projects that you have listed, a good chunk of them are a repackage of already existent road programs. You don't need that propaganda to try and create effect.
Conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude by saying that we will commend you where commendation is due, but we will also give you critique in good faith. If you take it and you adjust, it will help all of us. The propaganda is too much. For now, because you listened, your fiscal program, you are beginning to adjust it, but it's not sustainable. If you adopt the advice that we are giving you, the Republic will be the better for it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Who is struggling to look for job opportunities. That is not of interest to my grandmother who sells cocoa in the village. That is not an interest to the woman who sells kelewele in Kojo Oppong Nkrumah's constituency. What is of interest to the ordinary Ghanaian is how they feel. And as a young student leader, I remember in 1996, in fact in 2000, President Kufuor, then candidate Kufuor, he said, pardon me my wobbling Twi language. At least 2 years in KNUST, I'm trying to manage. That is of interest to the people of this country. The people of this country are well aware that the city has calmed down. And my brother was being pessimist, that what you should be thinking of is sustaining it. I want to ask a simple question. And this question may be regarded as a rhetorical question. Is it that he is uncomfortable that the city has actually arrested the fugitive of a dollar? We were told in this country that the dollar was arrested, locked at the police headquarters, and the keys was actually given to the IGP. In fact, the dollar was a fugitive. It is not fluke. It is not just by accident that we have been able to reduce and in fact arrested the fugitive dollar under their watch. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, he said that we are not spending. And I was shocked, without empathy to the life that was lost. He made reference to the fact that our security agencies could not detect that there was going to be some killing. Unfortunately, and I told him, I know him, my good friend. The difference is that with all the resources you had, you couldn't realize that Ahmed Swale, a journalist in this country, was going to be murdered in the most barbarous manner that he was murdered. The security agencies couldn't do so. And in fact, he's talking about the dollar, talking about gold. And I'm asking myself, whether we just discovered gold. If you are not being pretentious, and you are telling us that the NDC is continuing with some of the so-called good works, where were you? Didn't you have the good works? When you won the elections at the back of competence, that was what you told the people of this country. That you had the men, and with all these men, and with all the gold, you couldn't do what the NDC has done in less than a year. It is shocking, Mr. Speaker, that he's telling us that, oh, but for the challenges we encountered Let me remind my honorable friend, the Russia-Ukraine war is more profound and escalatory than it was. We were told that every problem we had in this country was as a result of the unfortunate incident. And he, Honorable Oppong, Nkrumah, was an active participant in the mess they created because he was a minister of state. An active participant. He was not sitting on the fence. And I think that the least he could do was to tell this government, you are doing so well and we are praying. And I expect him to join me tomorrow. We can have some prayer before we come into the chamber. Let's pray that the city which is doing so well, and in fact, I engage people who are engaged in importing and export, and they're telling us that they are doing so well because of the value of the city. But to say that what we should be thinking of how we sustain it, I thought that he would command us for even achieving that and be praying that it should be sustained. And I can assure him that the sustainability is something that is real. It is not a fluke. It is very clear to everybody. And Mr. Speaker,
of June 2021. So I commend the government for continuing with the gold purchase program. The gold purchase program was being done by the Bank of Ghana and the PMMC. By the Bank of Ghana and the PMMC. The Bank of Ghana is still here. The PMMC is what you've rebranded as Gold Board. And so I give you commendation for continuing the gold purchase program. It was a gold purchase program that moved us from 8.7 tons of gold to 30 tons of gold when we started. The third commendation I'll give is for continuing with the inflation reduction program. Remember that when it went as high as 54%, and then the central bank started the tight monetary policy aimed at bringing it down. That was what brought inflation down from 54% to 23% by the time we were leaving power. And as you came, you are continuing. And so the first part of my submission is to commend you for continuing the gold purchase program, continuing the inflation reduction program, and continuing or following the fiscal critique that we gave. But Mr. Speaker, you see, when we say this government is not spending, sometimes they confuse it for fiscal discipline. I heard the chairman of the Economic Committee, my very good friend, Honorable Afo, suggesting that what is happening is fiscal discipline. Honorable Chairman, it is not. There's a difference between fiscal discipline and a failure to meet fiscal targets. When you program that you are going to raise 102 billion and that you will spend 128 billion and achieve a primary balance of 0.4%, fiscal discipline is when you are able to do that. When you fail to raise the revenue and you fail to spend, that's not fiscal discipline. And because you are not raising the revenues that are required so that you can spend, this fiscal failure, the consequence is that you are failing to deliver on some essential public goods and services. You see, when you fail on fiscal policy or fiscal...
Abusia, ene da hono, so wahu, ene parliament, ayeshe papa. And go for me, just yenya parliament more. Omo time is okay, Mr. Speaker, because your time is up for classes. Omonte. Aye, MPP ni NDC. Well, hi, Allen Media Ghana. Ni okoshi, ni oti. Wa drink chere, ewo hu anything. Fatu comment section for Emma.